When my parents tried to make me responsible for my divorced sister's life, I disappeared and let them experience what losing control truly means. My name is Megan. I'm 34 years old, living alone in a small apartment in Cleveland, and I had never been a mother until the day my entire family applauded because I was given the opportunity to raise 3 children that weren't mine. No one asked if I was ready. No one even looked me in the eye when they made the announcement during my grandmother's 80th birthday party. Like I was the obvious choice. Like I was born to replace an absent mother. But what they didn't know was that I had quietly quit my job, given up my lease, and was preparing to disappear from a life I never chose. I'm the middle child of 3 sisters, and if you've ever been the one in the middle, you probably know what that means. Not the focus of expectations like the eldest, and not the spoiled one like the youngest. I grew up in a household that was always lively, but never loud because of me. I was Megan, the easygoing, understanding, considerate kid everyone believed would never bother anyone. My sister Rachel was the complete opposite. She's 2 years older than me and had always known how to make the world revolve around her. When she cried, the whole house held its breath. When she laughed, everyone caught some of that joy. Every family decision, from vacations to dinner plans, had to factor in Rachel's mood. When Rachel got married at 25, our parents seemed relieved, but that marriage fell apart after 8 years and 3 children. The reason it changed depending on who she was talking to. Sometimes her husband cheated. Sometimes she just needed to find herself. The real reason, I don't think she even knows. After the divorce, Rachel moved back into a rented apartment on the 2nd floor close to our parents' house. An apartment I ended up paying half the rent for just for a few months. You get it, right? The 2nd month turned into the 10th. Then nobody mentioned anymore that I was the one footing the bill for her little family. It became an unspoken obligation, as if not doing it meant I was being unfair to the kids. The 3 kids, Aiden 10 years old, Lily 8, and Max, the youngest, who had just turned 5, they weren't at fault. Truly, they were smart, sensitive children, and sometimes so sweet it softened me. But they also carried the chaos of their mother with them. I remember the first time Rachel left them at my place. Only an hour. I'm getting my hair done and a quick massage. I was in the middle of preparing a data analysis for a client. I told her, Rachel, I have a Zoom meeting at 2. She laughed, kissed my forehead like I was a child, and said, "You've got this. They're really well behaved." Then she vanished for 5 hours. From then on, every emergency babysitting became my job. Once because Rachel needed a weekend to heal. Another time because a friend introduced her to an amazing guy. And I'd regret it forever if I didn't go. And every time I was the one canceling plans, putting myself on hold, rushing to throw dinner in the oven while calming Max's cries, Aiden yelling, then sulking, and Lily crossing her arms saying, "Mom says Aunt Megan's always free. That's why she's not married." I tried talking about it gently, indirectly. Once I said, "Rachel, I need my own space too. Can we make a schedule in advance?" She dropped into a chair, covering her face like I'd splashed her with cold water. Do you know how tired I am? Being a single mom is hard. Every time I think someone understands me, they turn their back. When did I ever turn my back? Or maybe I never did. I stopped running after her. I told my mom, who lives by the motto, "Family is everything," frowned and said, "Sweetheart, Rachel needs compassion. She's lost her whole family. You can't be so rigid." I asked, "And what about me? Who has compassion for me when my entire youth is chipped away night by night, weekend by weekend?" My mom said, "Don't say things like that in front of the kids. They're your nieces and nephew." Yes, they are. But they're not my default responsibility. I wasn't born to be someone's stand-in. I'm not a background character in my sister's redemption story. No matter how much I love those kids, no one gets to treat that love like a given. But in that house, our parents' house, my love was always the one thing that didn't need asking. Didn't need thanking. Didn't need permission. All it took was Megan, and I was expected to show up, and I did, until I started feeling like I was disappearing from my own life. Started wondering if one day I stopped showing up. Would they even notice? Or would they simply find someone else to replace me? Thursday night, I had collapsed onto the couch after a long day when there was a loud knock at the door. Before I could stand up, the doorbell rang over and over. I sighed, looked at the clock. It was 7:48 p.m. I opened the door and instantly knew I wouldn't be sleeping early that night. Rachel stood there holding Max, who was wailing from exhaustion. Behind her, Aiden was dragging a rolling suitcase and Lily was clutching a pillow and a toy bag. Rachel's eyes were glassy, her blonde hair tied in a hurry, perfume still fresh like it had just been sprayed in the elevator. "I'm sorry for the short notice, but this is really important." Before I could say a word, she shoved Max into my arms. He buried his face into my shoulder, leaving snot all over my freshly ironed blouse. "David is about to move in with me. I can't let him know I have kids. Not yet. He still thinks I'm just a divorcee with no strings attached." I froze. "What did you say?" "You know me. I'll sort everything out soon. I need a solid foundation with David. He's a good guy, steady job, owns a house. Not like the others I dated. This might be my only chance." I took a step back, trying to support Max's growing weight in my arms. "Rachel, I can't." "What did you say?" She looked stunned. "I'm busy, I have plans, and I can't keep being the shadow behind all of yours." Her face changed instantly from pleading to blaming. "Megan, how can you say that? You don't have kids, you live alone. You're the only one in this family who can help. Not having children doesn't mean I owe anyone motherhood." She went quiet for 3 seconds, then turned and grabbed her phone. I knew exactly who she was calling from the first beep. Less than 5 minutes later, my phone rang. "Mom, Megan." Her voice was low and deliberate. "Your sister is going through a tough time. You can't refuse her like this. She sacrificed so much for those kids." I gripped the phone tightly. "Mom, I've helped her for 2 years. I've canceled trips, missed chances. I pay half her rent, take care of the kids every weekend, and no one asks if I'm okay." Mom cut me off. "But this time is different. This is her future. David is a decent man. If your sister doesn't hold on to this relationship, those 3 kids might lose their chance at a father. And what about me? Don't I deserve a future? Don't I have the right to live by my own schedule?" Silence. Then my mother's voice dropped colder. "Family comes first, Megan. Everyone has to sacrifice a little. A younger sister should sacrifice so her older sister can find happiness. You're the only one without obligations. If you don't help, who will?" That question hit like a clean blade, cutting right where it always had. If you don't help, who will? It had echoed for years. When Dad was in the hospital, when Grandma had her stroke, when Rachel got divorced, when someone needed to pick up a birthday cake, cook Thanksgiving dinner, or drive a kid who missed the bus. I was always the one they called. Not because I was the best, but because I didn't complain. And this time was no different. I looked at Rachel. She wasn't crying anymore. She knew that once Mom called, I'd cave. 3 days. "I have work starting Monday." She hugged me. Not a real hug, a hollow gesture to mark her victory. "I knew you were a good person." That night, Max threw up chocolate milk on the living room rug. Aiden screamed about losing Wi-Fi, and Lily knocked over the glass vase I'd been given for my promotion last year. I skipped dinner, sat there scrubbing vomit out of the carpet, picking crushed flower petals from under the table, and that's when it hit me. No one had asked how my day was. At 9:20, I tucked all 3 kids into a makeshift bed of pillows and blankets. I returned to the living room, finally able to turn on the TV. My favorite show was rerunning. I hadn't even sat down when a loud crack came from the bedroom. A sharp sound, like glass shattering. I rushed in. The 52-inch TV, the one I'd saved for nearly 6 months to buy, was cracked straight through. Max was sitting there stunned, still holding the remote. "I didn't mean to," he mumbled. Lily pushed me. I threw the remote on the bed and it bounced into the TV. Max sobbed through his words. "Liar!" Lily yelled from the corner. "You got mad and smashed it. Don't blame me." Aiden was wearing headphones, pretending not to hear anything. I stood there in the dark room, staring at the broken screen, unable to breathe. It felt like I had shattered, too. I sat down, staring at the fracture running across the screen, reflecting back my face, small, blurry, and completely invisible in my own home. I didn't sleep that night. After the remote cracked the TV, Max cried for nearly half an hour, terrified he'd get in trouble. Lily was still upset, muttering under her blanket that he always gets away with everything. Aiden, the oldest, sat at the edge of the bed, pale under the dim nightlight. I didn't scream. I didn't even have the strength to cry. I quietly placed the cracked remote on the shelf, taped the broken screen, then returned to the kitchen where dinner dishes were still piled like a miniature disaster zone. My once quiet apartment now felt like a chaotic preschool, the sofa stained with chocolate milk Max had spilled earlier that morning, the white porcelain plate, a gift from a former client when I won Employee of the Year, was now 2 large shards and countless splinters I swept into the trash. All Saturday and Sunday, I didn't leave the house, not because I was free, but because I was tied to 3 kids dancing on the edge of my patience. Max demanded pancakes with syrup and fresh strawberries every meal, sobbing whenever I served anything else. Lily refused to shower because at Mom's house I only bathe on Tuesdays and Fridays. Aiden played video games non-stop, and when I reminded him about homework he shrugged and said, "You're not my mom." I tried. I really tried. I cooked full lunches with vegetables and fruit. No one ate. I laid out a blanket and turned on a cartoon for them all to watch. 5 minutes later, Lily was crying because Max grabbed the remote and Aiden complained it was for babies. I called Rachel 3 times. No answer. I texted Rachel, Max broke the TV, I'm seriously overwhelmed. No reply. By Sunday evening, I stepped into the bathroom and looked at myself in the mirror. My hair was a mess. The dark circles under my eyes looked sketched in charcoal. My t-shirt was stained with orange juice Max had spit out because he didn't like that kind. I tried to remember the last time I sat alone with a cup of coffee at my favorite cafe. When was that? A month ago, too. I wasn't sure. I remembered loving quiet. This apartment used to smell like vanilla candles. Now it reeked of snacks and grape juice. At 6:15 p.m., I was boiling pasta for the kids when I heard a knock at the door. Rachel, light makeup, green dress, hair, and soft curls. She looked like she'd come straight from the spa. "I'm here to pick up the kids." She smiled. "Bet they wore you out, huh?" I said nothing. She stepped in, glanced at the kitchen, then looked over at the kids playing Legos in the living room. "Okay, guys. Let's go." Mommy's parked outside. The kids cheered like I was the Wicked Witch, and she was the fairy godmother come to rescue them. Fine. At least I didn't have to fake a smile. I packed up their clothes, wrapped Max's wet sneakers in a bag. He jumped in a puddle on the balcony. As I placed the last bag by the door, Rachel turned back. "Oh, Megan," she said casually. "Can you help again next weekend? David's taking me to meet his parents in Vermont. I need some alone time to make a good impression. They're a bit old-fashioned, so the kids wouldn't really fit in." I opened my mouth to say something but paused. I looked at the 3 kids tumbling down the stairs, mismatched shoes, laughing loud enough to echo down the hall. Rachel didn't wait for an answer. She waved. "Thanks in advance. I knew you wouldn't say no. You're always amazing." The door closed. I remained alone in the apartment, now quiet again, dinner still bubbling on the stove. I turned it off, sat down. The TV screen was still cracked like a colt slashed through the living room and through me. 3 days later, on a gloomy weekday afternoon, I was working in my home office when my phone buzzed with a message. It was from Shannon, Rachel's longtime friend. She had been a bridesmaid in Rachel's wedding, and though we weren't super close, we'd had coffee a few times, enough to be real with each other. "Megan, sorry to text this, but I think you should know." I stopped typing, eyes fixed on the screen. "I had lunch with Rachel today. She talked about her no-kids phase. She said David's moving in by the end of the month, but since he's not ready for kids, she plans to leave the 3 of them at your place for at least a few months. She even joked she'd hire a babysitter. With your money, Megan lives alone and doesn't have kids, so of course she'll help." That's a direct quote. I set my phone down. My throat felt like it was being crushed by an invisible hand. I remembered every moment from the past few weeks when Rachel tested leaving them with me, her lines like, "I know you'll always be there when I need you." And that Sunday night when she said I'd be thanked soon enough, not a few days, not a one-time thing. It was a long-term plan. I walked out of my home office and stood in front of the cracked TV, still unreplaced, like a silent reminder. I had let something slip away a long time ago, not just boundaries but ownership of my own life. Every time I said I'm busy or I need personal time, they called it selfish. Every time Rachel needed a break, I was the babysitter. Every month she paid half the rent, the other half came quietly from my bank account without thanks, without asking. But this time, it was an entire scheme built on lies where I would play the stand-in mother so my sister could shine as a carefree woman. I picked up my phone and typed, "Thank you for being honest, Shannon. I truly appreciate it." Shannon replied almost instantly, "I don't mean to interfere, but the way Rachel treats you, it's not fair. And hiding her kids from her new boyfriend, that crosses a line. She told David she's mentoring 3 kids at the local church. Didn't say they're her own." My heart tightened. I had grown used to her selfishness, but I still couldn't believe she was willing to deny her own children just for a few months of starting fresh. I looked around my apartment. A place that used to be a quiet little haven where I once dreamed of simple things. Peace. A night with a book. A pot of hot soup in the winter. Now it was about to become a hiding spot for 3 children unacknowledged by their father and temporarily stored away by their own mother so she could date. I didn't hate the kids, but I hated being treated like a tool. Hated that every time my sister wanted to reinvent herself, I had to sacrifice small pieces of my own life. I returned to my desk and opened my banking app. My finger hovered over the recurring monthly transfer. $825. Rachel's rent support. I didn't cancel it then, but I started drawing a way out. I stayed silent. No emails, no angry texts, no confrontation, no clear the air conversation. They simply began packing. The next morning, I called Mr. Wilkins, my landlord, a man in his 60s who lived downstairs and adored his plants. I know the lease has 4 months left, I said, my voice unusually calm, but I'm dealing with a family situation. I need to move out early. If you find someone to take over, I can be out by the end of the week. He was quiet for a few seconds, then said warmly, "You've always paid on time, never made noise, kept the place in great shape. I actually have a family needing something urgently. If you move out by Friday, I'll refund your entire deposit." I thanked him and hung up. That was it. No drama, no one begging me to stay. By that afternoon, I found a 1-bedroom apartment in Columbus, about a 2-hour drive away. It was near a park with a balcony that overlooked a river. The landlord was a widow named Deborah, her voice kind and Midwestern. She told me I could move in any time as long as I was okay watering her plants on hot days. I said I can start moving tomorrow. That evening, as I opened the closet to begin packing, a strange feeling washed over me. Not sadness, something lighter, as if I'd opened a secret door inside myself and the wind was finally coming in. I started with the things no one ever noticed. Books, scented candles, spice jars, old photos no one had ever asked about. Every night after work, I stuffed things into boxes, drove small loads to the new apartment. I rented no truck, asked no one for help, told neither Amy, my best friend, nor Mom, sent no text to Rachel, posted nothing on social media, left without a trace. Every day after 5 p.m., I disappeared a little more from the old place, and each night I arrived a little more in the new one. The Columbus apartment was still empty when I got the keys, but the soft balcony light in the afternoon and the sound of the nearby river softened something inside me, like folding a shirt that's finally been ironed smooth. I bought a new moss green rug, a low bookshelf, a set of white floral bedsheets, picked by me, not judged by anyone as too old-fashioned. For the first time, everything was mine. No voices chiming in, no critical glances. This little place was the first where I didn't need permission to exist, exactly as I am. By Wednesday, I stood in the old apartment, among patchy white walls, and the empty spaces that used to hold memories that weren't mine. The spot where Max spilled milk on the sofa. The corner where Lily sulked about brushing her teeth. The side of the TV still cracked, still silent. I placed the old remote on the shelf, removed the batteries, wiped the kitchen counters, unplugged the Wi-Fi, shut off the water valve under the sink. Then I paused in front of the bathroom mirror for a long moment. My face looked peaceful. I wasn't leaving out of anger. I was leaving because it was time. Friday, I left the keys in an envelope, wrote my name on it, and slipped it into Mr. Wilkins' mailbox. Got into my car, sat there for a few seconds before starting the engine. In the rearview mirror, I saw that familiar window still slightly ajar, the little potted plants swaying in the breeze. I didn't say goodbye, but in my heart, I knew I had closed a door I should have shut a long time ago. Saturday morning, I woke to soft sunlight streaming through the curtains of my new apartment in Columbus. I brewed a cup of black coffee, sat on the balcony, watching the river drift lazily past the rocky edge. Feeling for the first time in years like my mind could finally flow in peace, I knew exactly what day it was. Rachel had made it clear the week before. "I'll drop the kids off early around 9 a.m. Don't forget breakfast." Okay. Max doesn't like cereal. Aiden only eats pancakes if they have that specific syrup. And Lily needs soy milk. I stayed silent, and she never asked again. At the exact same time, over 120 miles away, Rachel was knocking on my old apartment door for the 30th time. The 3 kids stood behind her, each clutching a large bag, still groggy. Aiden stared at his phone. Lily complained about the heat, and Max started whining that he needed to use the bathroom. The doorbell made no sound. She pressed and held it. Still nothing. On the door, a note taped near the handle read, "This apartment is now occupied by a new tenant. For inquiries, contact Mr. Wilkins. Phone number below." Rachel froze for a few seconds, heat rising from her palms straight to her cheeks. She pulled out her phone and called me. "Ring, ring, ring. The number you have dialed is currently unavailable." She tried again. Same result. She began texting. "Megan, where are you? I'm here. The kids are standing in the sun. Open the door. What's with the note from Mr. Wilkins? Did you really move?" She called Mom. I was still reading on my new balcony chair when my phone started vibrating. Mom's name lit up on the screen. I stared at it for a moment, then placed it face down on the table. The coffee had gone cold, but my heart hadn't. For the first time in my life, I let a family call pass without feeling guilty. Back at the old apartment, Rachel fumbled to call Mr. Wilkins. He answered briefly. "Megan moved out last week. She returned the keys and left everything in order. The unit is in transition now." She shouted, "Where did she go? Why didn't anyone tell me?" He simply replied, "Miss Megan said she needed some space. I figured if she didn't tell you, she probably had her reasons." Rachel froze in place. The 3 kids started getting restless. Lily asked, "Mom, why aren't we going into Aunt Megan's house?" Max tugged her sleeve. "I really need to pee." Aiden looked at his mom and slowly asked, "Did she really leave?" She dialed David. "Are you almost here? I'm parking outside now. Can you open the gate?" She hung up, turned to the 3 kids. Her lips were pressed tight. Her eyes darted to the bags of clothes, toys, pillows, water bottles, medicine kits, everything too visible, impossible to hide. She couldn't keep this from David. She pulled the kids close and crouched down, whispering fast, "When Uncle David comes, don't call me Mom, call me Aunt." "Okay." All 3 looked confused. Max asked, "Then who are you?" Lily blinked. "Aren't we your kids?" Rachel clenched her fists, her lips trembling. "Just for a few minutes. I'll explain later." The gate opened. David walked in, pulling 2 suitcases and holding a bouquet of flowers. "What are you doing out here?" Then his eyes landed on the 3 children. The bouquet slowly dipped in his hand. "Rachel, what is this?" She swallowed. These are kids from church. I helped look after them. Their parents asked me to take them out this morning." David stared into her eyes, unblinking. Aiden spoke up at the worst possible moment. "Are you Mom's new boyfriend?" David said nothing, but his expression changed from confusion to quiet disappointment. He looked at Rachel as if seeing a complete stranger. "Rachel," he said slowly, "I asked you 3 times. You told me you didn't have children." "He wasn't ready to tell you," she whispered. "I was scared you'd leave. Well, now you did exactly that." He glanced at the kids one last time, then turned, pulling his suitcase behind him. Not a single word more. Rachel called after him. "David, I'm sorry, I just wanted a real chance this time." He didn't stop. The children remained there, not fully understanding, but sensing enough to know something was very wrong. The September morning sky was still clear blue, but the sun no longer felt warm, and I, far from that place, had no idea everything was falling apart exactly the way it had been built, on lies, on assumptions, on expectations. No one ever bothered to ask if someone was willing to carry. I was folding laundry when my phone began buzzing non-stop. One message after another appeared. The first name, Rachel. "You ruined my life. You think you're so righteous." David blocked me. "The kids cried all night. You'll regret this. I lost everything because of you." Every line hit my eyes like a language I'd long been forced to learn, a language of blame, avoidance, and placing responsibility for one's life on someone else's shoulders. Then the phone rang. This time it was Mom. I hadn't planned to answer, but then I thought, maybe I should just once to end something I should have ended long ago. I picked up. "Megan," my mother snapped. "What are you doing? Your sister called me sobbing. David left her. Do you even realize you're destroying her future?" I closed my eyes, steadying myself. "I didn't destroy anything, Mom. I just stopped participating in a performance. I stepped away from a role this family forced me into. That's all." "You're being selfish. Have you thought about those kids? About the pain your sister is going through?" I let out a soft laugh. No bitterness, no sarcasm, simply too tired to keep pretending. "I've thought about those kids for the past 2 years when the first paid half her rent, when I canceled plans with my friends, when I cleaned up her house every time she went off to find herself. But no one in this family ever asked, was I tired?" The other end of the line went silent, but I could hear Mom's shallow breathing, the soft spin of her wedding ring against her finger. She always did that when she didn't know what to say. "You may not agree with your sister's choices," she finally said, but she was just trying to build a home. She wanted to do the right thing this time. By hiding her children from her boyfriend, by asking her sister to raise them so she could pretend to be childless. "Megan," she snapped, "don't speak so disrespectfully." I lowered my voice, not out of fear, but because I knew when it was time to let go. "I didn't kill anyone's dream, Mom. I just stopped killing mine so someone else could chase theirs." I didn't wait for a reply. I hung up. My throat was dry, but my chest felt lighter than it had in years. I turned back to my desk, opened my laptop, logged into my bank account. Under scheduled transfers, the first item popped up. Rachel Mitchell, $825 per month, due 5th. I clicked cancel. The system asked if I was sure. I clicked yes. The screen flashed, canceled successfully. I took a screenshot, attached it, and sent one final message to Rachel. "Since to you I'm already dead, I guess you don't need money from a dead person." No emoji, no exclamation point, no wish you well. I didn't need to play a supporting role in anyone's tragedy ever again. I placed the phone face down on the table, poured myself a glass of water, and sat by the window. The afternoon light in Columbus was golden as honey. A gentle breeze moved through the oak trees. Far in the distance, the river drifted quietly, as if everything in this world could keep flowing. If only we were brave enough to stop at the right time. The first month in Columbus passed like a slow song. No crescendo, no lyrics, but there were no late-night phone calls, no frantic knocks followed by, "I'm sorry, it's last minute again." Mornings here began with birdsong, not the shouting of 3 kids fighting over the TV remote. I woke up early, washed my face with cool water, rolled out my yoga mat on the wooden floor, turned on a soft playlist, and breathed. Truly breathed without anyone calling my name, without responsibilities landing on my shoulders like a sudden blow. I signed up for an online yoga training course, then applied to teach a trial class at a small studio a few blocks away. They took me in, saying I had a voice that makes people believe things will be okay. In the afternoons, I worked as a freelance financial consultant for a few small companies, managing expenses, reviewing reports, handling taxes. It was enough to keep me engaged, but not so much that it trapped me in a packed schedule. I worked in a space I'd chosen, leggings with my hair tied up, sipping peppermint tea, and no one asked, "Are you free?" While I was in the middle of something. Every weekend, I picked a new coffee shop to visit. I took notes in a little notebook, the cafe's name, the view from the window, the signature drink, not to show off, just to remember that I'd been there, that I'd sat in that seat, and that I didn't have to rush home to babysit. Amy, my best friend since college, took the train to visit in the 4th week. She brought a small box of cake, a candle already placed in the center, and knocked on my door like no distance had ever existed between us. "After your birthday got canceled last year, I owe you a proper celebration," Amy said, hugging me like I'd been rescued. We ate cake, drank white wine, and played our old college indie rock playlist, those songs that now felt slightly cringy, but comfortingly nostalgic. I laughed, not to be polite. I truly laughed. Laughed until tears welled up because I felt seen, present, not as someone guarding someone else's happiness, but as myself. After that, I started to grow used to a life where I didn't have to explain everything. I became friends with Helen, the woman who lived downstairs. She was nearly 30 years older than me, but had a razor-sharp memory and occasionally left her keys in the microwave. One afternoon, while I was helping her find her reading glasses under the couch, she looked at me and said, "You have the smile of someone who stood up again after being shoved hard." I gave no reply, but that sentence echoed in my mind the entire next day. Helen taught me how to make apple pie without sugar, something she said keeps the kindness without spiking the glucose. I taught her how to set up a social media account so she could follow her online senior dance class. In return, she took me to a used bookstore near the train station full of memoir writing guides and beautiful hardbound journals. I picked a deep blue notebook, no patterns, and I started writing. Not a diary, not a memoir, just scattered notes about what it feels like to step away from a role you never chose. I named the blog Retreat, not Escape. I wrote about the calls that always came with assumptions, about the ache of loving the kids but resenting myself, about how quickly people label you selfish when you refuse to sacrifice. No one knew my identity. I used no profile picture, shared no real name. Yet within a few weeks, the blog began attracting regular readers. A woman in Missouri commented, "I think I'm being a stand-in mom for my sister too." A grandmother in Colorado messaged, "Your words are gentle, but after reading, I feel like a knot in my chest just loosened." I didn't reply to everyone, but every time I saw a notification, I smiled. Turns out there are others stepping out of old roles, and maybe they too need a small map, a simple note along the way to remind them they're not walking alone. There's something I've realized through all this. Sometimes leaving isn't about abandoning others. It's about returning to yourself. Not everyone will understand that, and maybe they don't have to because everyone has their limits. And the only thing we can do is quietly protect our own boundaries, even if it makes others angry. I'm no longer the woman always ready to sacrifice so someone else can be called complete. And I'm no longer trying to become someone who makes the family proud. I'm simply living honestly, peacefully, and without apologizing for choosing calm.